Hello guys, it's another episode of your sandbox project. While recovering from my health problems, I've been playing for a while the beautiful game which is called What Remains of Edith Finch, and the way how they tell story is just blown my mind. And I thought of it would be a good idea to recreate such effect and use it for my own game. There are a lot of animations, ways how, like, it's an interactive text, so when you approach some object, the text appears. Sometimes it's in the air, or sometimes it's aligned to the surface. As I said, it has a lot of animations, a lot of ways how to interact with it, and I show you just some of them that I recreated. And this system is quite expandable, so you can adjust it wherever you like. I hope you will like it, and let's get started. So, these assets are, except of fonts, all you need to have to recreate the feature. I've made the custom material. In this feature I use 3D widget, and by default the material for this widget is one-sided. In the game What Remains of Edith Finch, if you move aside and try to look behind the text, you'll see that it's rendered, so I need to have my material to be two-sided. Also, to have a custom material is good in case you want to adjust the logic and add some visual effects to it. So, blend mode masked, shaded model is unlit, and it's two-sided. Nothing fancy here. Now let's move on. Next one is enumeration for the animation of our letters or signs. So as you can see here, I have three predefined enumerations. Each of them is the name for particular animation in the widget, and the name is better than if you have it's named with the indexes, because you don't really remember what type of animation it is if you use index. And by default the first entrance is set to be none. It's just a good practice. So now we can close both of them and continue with the interface. We need interface because like, to have this feature work, we need to create an actor and make it work with the HUD. So to make it work seamlessly, we need to have an interface, so we can like send the data from our actions in the world through our actor to the HUD. As you can see right now, I have only one function. It has this type of data that I need: text, color, font, delay between signs, widget size, and sign animation, and particular types for these variables: string, slate color, slate font info, float, vector 2D, and enumeration for our animation. Once you've done this, we can continue with our blueprint logic. So now let's create two user widgets. The one is called GUI node, the other one is GUI sign. Node will be the parent for our signs or our letters. Just make it clear right now, and let's end up with the logic for our blueprint and then go back to our user interface. So you need to create the blueprint actor. Mine is called node, and as you can see, that's the whole logic we need to have. It's like, it's the overall logic. I don't have the representation of the anchors for the left top and right bottom corners to visualize the plane, because each text widget is represented by the quads. It's a simple plane geometry, but it's up to you to add it yourself. All you need is to create the widget component. For the element, you need to set our custom material group. Next, for the widget class, by default, we need to set our node, our master widget for our feature. What else? Let me quickly check. Yep, that's actually all for the widget. Next one is the sphere. It's a sphere collision. By default, sphere radius is set to 256. It can be adjustable. You can make a variable to adjust it through the scene. Right now I don't have need to make it. As for the collision type, it's set to be custom. We only need our query collision. It ignores everything but overlaps our pawn. So that's actually how it works. Next one is variables. Text color, be visited is for like once you interact with a particular object, you should only see the notification about this event only once. So that's why I need the boolean type variable. Next is node location, node rotation, font. Type of variables are the same as we have it's in our interface. So string, slate color, slate font info, float for delay between signs, widget size is vector 2, and sign animation. For the sign animation here, by default I set the first one to be the default. As you can see, I have default values for almost everything. Make sure that all these variables that you have to adjust through the scene are set to be editable, so you can see the icon. Now let's talk about the construction script. So I do have node location and rotation. So as I noticed, what remains of Edith Finch, the text is aligned sometimes to the surface of an object. I don't really want to make this feature be very monstrosity in the logic part. You can always put an actor, because it's transparent, near the actor that you want to have notification, and by adjusting the relative location rotation of this actor of our node, you can make it looks like it's aligned to the surface, if you have to, or if you need to, sorry. So for the widget, it means that if we place our actor, the widget will have some offsets in its location and rotation. Next, we need to turn off the shadows from our widget, because by default it casts shadows. And we need to define the draw size of our plane where our text will be applied. For the event graph, logic is quite simple. Yep, let me quickly show you that the widget by default is set to be visible is for our construction script, so we can see where it will be in the world. But when we like start playing the game, we don't need to see our widget if we don't interact with it. So when event begin play fires, we need to hide our widget. When we overlap with our sphere collision, we need to check whether we haven't visited yet, and if it's so, we mark it to be visited. Then we unhide our widget and use get user widget object from our widget reference to send the message through the interface to our HUD. So our widget in our world will be updated. And we need to provide all our variables to our message. That's actually everything that you have to have inside our nodes actor. Now let's talk about widgets. So, our widget. Here you can see I have my master widget, and canvas panel consists of one element, it's uniform grid. Like if you want to have animated letters, the approach is the following. Text by default can be animated, and to make it work, like this feature, we need to have the grid, and we need to fill in our grid, with, like, each letter should be the child of this grid, and each letter will be animated. Nothing fancy. And to make it work perfectly, unified grid is the best way to go, because if you want to have the text to be wrapped properly, the wrap box and other cases, other widgets just can't make it work fine. So the grid will tell us the row and column indexes, and we can manipulate them wherever we like. So this approach is very like universal. If you talk about the settings of our grid, size to content is checked, because if we don't have it and we have a predefined by default size, we'll have the artifact when the grid will be redrawing every time we add a new letter. And let me just quickly show how it will look. So, right now, if you take a look at how it works, you'll see that it's redrawing and rearranging it in runtime, and it just don't work as it's intended to. So that's why we need to have size to content. That's the one case. Now let's go to our graph, and that's the whole logic for the wrapping our text. Here we need to add in class defaults, in class settings, we need to add or implement the interface that we created earlier. This one, as you can see, BPI storytelling. Once we've done it, we can add the events from our interface, which is called update node, and I create these variables just in case to have my graph just look more clear and nicely. So that's why I use these variables as the references here, and here, and so on. So once we've done with our references, we need to create or predefine all the widgets we need to have for our master widget. So each sign, even if it's space, should have its widget, so it will be less confusing to work with it. In case we can actually have like only words, or each word can be the container for the sign inside this word, and we can operate with it, but the logic is just started growing like more harder, and we don't need this for this particular simple feature. So we need our text, and we can like extract, make array from the string, so each letter will be added, not added, will be extracted and used as a particular character. Then I, as you can see, store it to the local variable here, and I create the widget for my letter or sign, and add it to the it's the GUI sign variable, but it's array. So once I'm done manipulating with my logic here, on the destruction type of logic, I should clear all the children and clear my array. So there is nothing left here, and nothing will cost any performance. Next one is pretty trick. It's the macros I've created a long time ago. I have that particular tutorial for how you can create for each loop with delay for default blueprint and for the UMG widget. You can go, I'll leave the link to this tutorial. It's only like, I guess, 6 or 8 minutes long, in the description to this video. Please check it, and you need to recreate it in case you want to have this feature work as it works. Let me just quickly show how it looks. As you can see, it's the default macros, but with the addition. Here I have the delay, and that's actually it. So just need to like copy paste the default macro and add some changes. Please follow my tutorial. So once you've done it, here comes the tricky part. All our sign or letter widgets should have text variable inside. Let me just quickly show you what we need to recreate in our sign widget, so we can continue with our master widget node here. So we should have the sign holder, it's the border. Make sure to have the proper alignments for the content of our border. As you can see, it's centered like vertically and horizontally. Padding set to be 0, and by default the brush alpha is set to 0. I'll show you why we need to have it like this. It's just the case how we will manage the margin or the offsets of our text inside our widget. And that's actually it. And for the sign for our text, just simple text, and the alignment comes from our border. Now let's create some variables, text color, font, sign animation. Make sure that these widget elements are set to be variables, so you can manipulate with them here on the graph. And these variables, they also should be used as expose on spawn, so once you create the widget, you can define these variables through other blueprints, like this. And for our side, we only need to have particular information: color, font, text, sign animation. They are the same types of we have in our interface. So, slate color, slate font info, sign animation enumeration. That's it. So, now back to our master widget. As we have created the text, or like here we have all our widgets with the proper sign inside it, and we can extract it and check whether it doesn't equal the space. If it's so, we need to start counting our signs in our line. So as you can see, I do have extra variables here. It's sign or letter count, row, column, and boolean type, which is called new line. We need to recreate the custom wrapper. I don't remember have I told you before or not, but yeah, I guess I have. Like, only unified grid will work with it, and to make it wrapped perfectly, we need to create the custom wrapper. So the logic is quite simple. Like, if we don't have the space, it means that we have our word. So word can contain like from 1 to whenever other number you think, like from 1 to 10 letters, etc. And we need to check whether like we have a space. So if we have space in sorry guys, if we have spaces between the letters, it means that we have a word. Once we have our word, we need to check whether the line and widget size here, it's the length we have set from our blueprint. It's the size of our plane where the text should appear. Whether the line length equals or less than the width of our widget. So widget size should be higher or equal the length of our line. If it's so, we can continue with counting our signs, like we are adding each sign behind the previous one. So it means if the length of the line less than the length of our widget, we are not at the end of the its visual end, so we can continue adding our letters. And we well, it's quite tough logic, but so how to check the line, the length of a line? By default, sign count here is 0. It means that if we try to multiply it by the size of our font, because the size of font actually declares the size of the widget of a letter we have, like multiplied by 0 will return 0, so we will be missing one element. So by this we need to add 1 here, so the counter will work properly. So size multiplied by the length or the size of our sign count will return the length of the line. Hooray! So if we have the space bar and the length of the line is higher, we need to go this part of logic. We need do once to actually clear the sign count. It means that the new line comes and new line should start counting with the 0. And once we done this one, we continue like counting our new line, the number of signs we have. Then we set the new line to true. If this condition doesn't fail, we can continue adding letters behind our previous letters, our signs, and the column here is for like the element number or the index where we should put our sign. And as you can see, sign count here will return 1 and all indexes should start with 0, so we need to withdraw the 1 from our sign count, so our column here will start with 0. And if we can continue, we should always put the new line to be false. Next one, the check if the new line has changed. If it's true, it means that we should pass the row number, so it goes downwards, and the order from where our word should start will need to be the 0 element. Like the unified grid works from left top corner. It starts from left to the right, so 1 0 0 0 0 1 0 2 0 3, then it goes down and it's 1 0 1 1 1 2 and so on and so forth. And we need to provide add child to the unified grid. It's our sign widget that we have created here, and we provide the grid with the proper row and column indexes. Once we done this, on the complete of our loop, we need to clear our widget. Here you can go with custom logic. I have timer that's called right after 3 seconds last, which calls the clear node event. It's this one. Here I also have the the custom macro. So all my I have my widgets and I'm iterating through them, and here you can go not with delay between signs but with extra delay and make it work also from the blueprint actor, so we need to have another copy in the interface. And for each element in this array I have animate sign. It's the event that I have here, which plays animation. Once it's done, I need to clear the master grid and clear the overall widget list or widget array variable. For the animation, here you can see I have 3 different animations. Each of them have their own each of them have their own lengths. and effects, and here I use enumeration and I use select on it. So once I've done with my animations, I can provide them as the references for the play animation node. And depending on the type of enumeration that comes from the blueprint actor, animation will be selected if it exists. So, as for the sign here, I have these preparations on the construct, because once we've done constructing our widgets here, you need to make the setup for them and to change the size of the widget of this one, of the holder. I use sign holder as the canvas slot, so I can manipulate the size. If you don't have this node, you can't change the size. And as you can see here, our holder doesn't have size to content, because our unified grid should contain of the same size elements. And font size, this one is tricky part, I'll show you right in a minute. Why we need to have the axis divided by 2. Then I use set color and opacity. Then I use set member in the structure, so I can change the whole structure. So I can change the particular element in the structure without changing the whole structure. So for this, use set member in the slate font info. This operation needed for our text to be aligned at the center. Then I use set font and set text. Nothing fancy. Now let me show you why do I need to have this one and this one. So let me quickly show you what will happen if we make the alpha of our holder, of our border here to 1. If we don't have division by 2 here and division by 2 here, once we launch the game, you can see that the border is aligned perfectly, but the letters inside our border, they just don't work as intended, and our text isn't wrapped properly. That's why we need to have the first one, this operation. Once we can manipulate the size of the text inside our border, it means that we are not dependent of the holder anymore. So this operation will always return the perfectly center aligned for our text elements. So now, as you can see, they are perfectly aligned both on vertical and horizontal. That's why we need to have the border, so the distance between our signs is the same, and we need to set the alpha to be 0, so we don't see the color and we only see our letters, like this. As for the wrapping, like to make the perfectly logic for the custom wrapper is quite tough and not very simple decision, not solution, sorry. So if we have here The same size for the x-axis means that the grid will have the perfectly rectangles inside, perfect rectangles, perfectly aligned elements inside the grid. And as you can see here, I don't have any kind of logic for particular checking the length of each word. I only have like neat trick with the spaces and the length of the whole line. So, as I said earlier, if we have two spaces between the sides, it means that we have a word. But this particular method, if we have the same size on x-axis of our rectangle of our child, it doesn't count the last word in the line. So it will like if we have let me just show you. If we have like in our notes here if the widget size and the size of the fonts are the same, I mean not the same, like if we have 40 here and 400 here, or like 80 and 800, so they are the same but difference in like 10 times. It means that the last word won't be taken in the account of where should I go with wrapping, and the word will be missed. To not make the quite hard logic and to make it like universal for this particular feature, we need to make the size of x-axis 2 times shorter. It means that if we have like 4 rectangles in a row, by this operation we like make the distance between letters shorter and it looks better, and we will always on each line have the x2 space for the last word. So not dependent on what type or which length of the text we will have, this particular approach will always handle the last word, and the next one after this one will start from the first line of the next row. I hope you understand the idea, and this particular method works perfectly if we have like size of the font less or equal the size of the widget. I mean, like if we have 42 here and 400 here, it stopped working perfectly. But if we have like 24 here and 400 here, it means that we have the wider size of the window and the more words will be applied on the first line. Once we make it shorter, our words will start coming up from the next row, and this works perfectly. But just don't go with the size higher than the size of the widget, like in first 2 numbers. So once we've done this, let me just show you how it works. As you can see, it wraps perfectly, and as you saw from the preview that I made, we have different texts with different size of fonts, length of the widget, etc., and they work perfectly. The only part that you should add in each your text element is the space bar in the first line of when your text starts, so it will be perfectly aligned on the left side, from the left side to like to the right direction. And the last one is the animation. So to create animation, you just need to press the animation here. Then we need here in the track select the widget that should be animated. In our case, it's the sign. Next, you need to add track. Oh, not you don't need to add track, I'm sorry. Now once we've added our widget here, we can add track here and adjust it wherever we like the render opacity, the transform, etc. And by changing like the length of animation, we can change the values that we have for each particular element. Rotation, scale, etc. So let me show you what I have in my predefined animations. So render opacity 1 and translation 0, 0. Once it changed, you can see that the letter is animated. Oh, I also have the rotation here. The angle is set to be 90, as you can see right there. So that's how you can animate your text. It's for the first animation. This one is for flying up. It's also quite simple, like 1 in render opacity and 0 on most translation axis, and then -40 and opacity to 0. That's it. That's how animation works. And I guess that's it. Now you can adjust like the logic more aggressively. Here, like you can make the animation not for the particular sign, but you can just make some logic like to withdraw the numbers that have like start from 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, etc. So I don't remember the name of this term, but I guess you understand my idea. And once you've done it, you can just drag and drop the actor on the scene, make some adjustments here, like the color, the text, font, delay between letters, type of animation, and it will work. So I hope you like what you've seen. Please subscribe if you like my videos. I do also have the Discord channel and Patreon page, so you can support me or ask any question. And I guess I'll see you quite soon. So, bye.